today's Blender tutorial, I will show you how to create an edge map in Eevee in Blender 5. I've used this to add a toxic glow to the edges, but you can also use this to create, for example, rusty edges in Eevee. And this is a fully procedural process that can be adapted to any kind of object. And you can also use this to build more advanced realistic materials in Eevee. So open a new blend file, and I will actually use the default setup this time. So the default cube is probably super happy. I've added a plane as a background and an HDRI as environment texture to light the scene. There's a link to the free HDRI I used in the description below. Before we get started, make sure you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. Just search for it under Edit and Preferences and Add-ons and check the box. Before we get started on the shading process, let's turn on some settings in Eevee to make our materials look good. In Render Properties, make sure you have your render engine set to Eevee. Turn on Jitter Shadows and increase Viewport and Render Samples. Then turn on Ray Tracing and just have a look at that reflection. With that set up, let's go into the Shading tab. Press New to add a material to your object. Increase the metallic value to 1 and change the color. I will use a light blue color. Add another Principled BSDF that will be our glowing edges. Press Shift and A and search for Principled BSDF. Then drop it here. Change the emission to 5 and change the emission color. I will go with green. To mix the two shaders, press Shift and A and search for Mix Shader node. Drop the node after the first Principled BSDF and plug the second Principled BSDF into the shader. Right now it's just mixing the two shaders, but we want the bottom BSDF to only apply to the edges. In Cycles, we could use pointiness to find the edges, but this unfortunately does not work in Eevee. Instead, we can use a workaround by using Ambient Occlusion. Ambient Occlusion shows bounce light, and it also shows shadows from crevices and other objects. And here's a quick tip. Using Ambient Occlusion can give your scenes more depth and realism. I mean, just look at the difference when I turn on Ambient Occlusion for the plane. This makes the bottom of the cube look more 3D and it shows up the edges. Press Shift and A and search for Ambient. Drop the node up here and plug Color into Factor. We will use a feature from the Node Wrangler to preview the Ambient Occlusion node. Press Ctrl and Shift and click on the AO node. And as we can see, currently the nodes create shadows in the concave areas and where the edges meet. But we want to flip this and have the node darken convex edges instead. To do this, tick the box by Inside. And the edges are now darkened. We can decrease the distance to sharpen the edge map and make it smaller. I will set the distance to 0.1. To gain more control over the edges, we will use a color ramp. So press Shift and A and search for color ramp and then drop it here. And we can press Ctrl and Shift and click on the color ramp to see the output. Switch the black and white handles around. What's white now will be the emission shader, and what's black will be the metallic shader. We can pull the handles closer together to sharpen the mask. To see the end result, let's press Ctrl and Shift on the mix shader. We're getting somewhere, but we can still improve this. As you can see, right now the edges are completely even, but we can break them up by using a noise texture. So press Shift and A and search for noise texture and drop it here. Then press Ctrl Shift and click on the noise texture to preview it. I want the noise to be a bit smaller, so I'll increase the scale to 18 and then increase the detail to 15. And just like with the Ambient Occlusion, we'll use a color ramp to better control the noise texture. So press Shift and A and search for color ramp. Drop it here and flip the handles. To mix the output from the two color ramps, we'll use a math node. So press Shift and A and search for math. So drop it here and plug color into value and change this to multiply. You can move the handles around until you get a result you like. And as you can see, the noise texture breaks up the edges. We can also change the colors from black and white to different shades of gray. This will give us a softer mix of the metal and emission shaders. And to make the edges a bit more pronounced, we will use another math node set to multiply. So click on the math node we already have, press Shift and D to duplicate and then drop it here. Increase the value to 5 and turn on Clamp. So press Ctrl and Shift on the mix shader to see the end result. And now we can adjust the color ramp until we get a result we like. If you run into an issue where the glowing material shows up on the flat surfaces, you can remove this by moving the black handle closer to the middle on the first color ramp. Now this is starting to look good, but we will adjust a few more settings to make this look great. Select the cube and go to Material Properties. And under Settings, turn on Ray Trace Transmission. If you can't see this option, make sure to change your render method from blended to the third. I don't know how to pronounce that. And then change thickness from sphere to slab. I'll also change the same settings for the ground material. But the emission shader is still looking a bit flat, and it's missing that outer glow we normally see on glowing materials. To fix this, we will add a bloom effect in the Compositor tab. We need to render the image before doing this, so go to Render and Render Image. Once the render is done, go to the Compositor tab. And let's click on New to add a new node tree. Press Shift and A and search for bloom and then drop it here. Now we can see the bloom effect on the rendered image. I will just move the nodes out of the way so we can better see. Change the color of the glow to match the emission, and you can change any other settings here if you want. Also, if you want a softer and more subtle glow, you can use the fog glow instead of bloom. And that's our edge map all done. If you want to learn how to create realistic glass materials in Eevee, check out the link to the video on screen right now. And make sure to like and subscribe if you found this tutorial helpful. I will see you next time. Bye!